didn't bring a coat.
It's gonna be hot out there once the sun comes up.
Are you all right?
I'll be okay.
Maybe too hot.
Now, does this show really need any introduction? Especially to members of my age cohort? Let's get into it. I'm Michael Douglas, and welcome to another episode of Dr. Pundit, where we talk about music, not medicine. And do you remember when, especially like I referenced before this show got underway, my age cohort, Gen X, Miami Vice, when it came on and how it basically changed the look of the 1980s with respect to pop culture? One can only imagine the influence of this show had there been social media at the time. But I want to talk about it, get kind of nostalgic about it. The marriage between network TV and pop music hasn't always been a happy one, and a turning point occurred in the fall of 1984 when an NBC show called Miami Vice appeared and changed the way music was used on TV forever, even setting aside the influence it had on the 1980s pop culture zeitgeist. The show not only utilized the hits, obscurities, and whimsy of the time to push along a narrative, but it also invited many top musicians to perform and act on the show. Miami Vice remains as influential as any show of that era for those reasons. Now, of course, Miami Vice wasn't the first show to utilize and incorporate stars that were red hot during its day in its shows. But prior to that, shows that incorporated musicians did so because it was integral to the plot. It required a lot of heavy lifting on the camps between the artist and the show itself to try to get them there and do this one-off appearance and maybe promote the show for a week or so, get some ratings. Back then, I guess we would call this the clickbait on TV, I suppose, analog style. And then they would move on and the show would continue on, and there you go. But with Miami Vice, the producers with that show made music the centerpiece. And by extension, the stars who appeared on those shows were just as important as the plot and the overall tenor of the show itself. And they basically took the concept of needle drops of the artist and basically lasted the entire length of the show's run from 1984 to 89. Now, there's some debate about how the show got started. Now, the late Brandon Tartikoff, who was the NBC executive at the time, the president at the time, jotted down the phrase MTV Cops on letterhead, company letterhead. And series co-creator Anthony Yerkovich at the time claimed that he was really interested in doing a show addressing this issue, cops trying to futilely stem the tide of illegal drugs in international type cities or glamorous type cities such as LA, Las Vegas, or in this case, Miami. However, this idea happened. It coalesced into what we know of today as Miami Vice. Michael Mann, who was already making his mark as a big-time hotshot film director, came aboard as an executive producer of the show. Big get for the show because he, in my opinion, really steered the look of the show basically for the rest of the show's run. And he really defined the show, the look of the show. Everything from the pastel colors that Crockett and Tubbs wore, to the stylized shootouts, to that punctuated, very high-profile episodes, to the correct placement of the stars who were in those shows. But as we all know, the biggest star of the show, Miami Vice, was, of course, the music. Now, keep in mind that Miami Vice entered the NBC schedule in the fall of 1984 without any big stars to promote it. Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas, who played the leads, weren't household names, and something would have to distinguish the show from the rest of the buddy-type detective, cop, fighting crime shows of the era. And in the pilot episode, it was a 3-year-old pop song. For a scene toward the end of the episode, the two cops are zipping through the Miami streets on their way to a climactic confrontation as In the Air Tonight, a Phil Collins track from 3.5 years earlier, plays as they drive. No dialogue takes place. Instead, the music evokes all the simmering tension in that particular scene and set the stage for how music was used in that show for the rest of the show's run.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh Lord,
How much time we got?
I've been waiting for this moment.
25 minutes.
Oh Lord, can you feel it coming in the air tonight? Oh Lord, oh Lord.
Each week you could count on several acts to appear on the show, several songs to appear on the show. And Miami Vice took off as a surprising success in the 1985-86 TV season when I was a senior in high school, and it certainly influenced fashion, music, and just the overall scope of that decade without any benefit from social media at that time. And I was happy to be a part of it, especially my senior year in high school. It wasn't long before a lot of major stars were lining up to appear on that show. Far-flung artists including Miles Davis, Frank Zappa, Gene Simmons from Kiss, Leonard Cohen. Producers even used Glenn Frey's Smuggler's Blues, a track from his All Nighter LP, to promote the show he appeared in, and that became a top 20 Billboard Hot 100 hit. Of course, everybody knows about the Miami Vice soundtrack, the soundtrack that gave us the #1 title track, the theme from the show itself. The song not only hit #1 in the Billboard Hot 100 itself, but it was also a big hit in the R&B singles chart. I remember when I was in high school, the R&B station WHRK-FM in Memphis put the song into heavy rotation as it was gaining traction among black listeners at that time and became a really big hit in that audience as well. I even bought the 12-inch vinyl of that song. And it's those kind of memories that make this show really resonate with me and in high school. And I even got into the fray wearing a banana-colored pastel type of sport coat to wear with my stonewashed jeans. I didn't go as far as the thin tie, but you get the picture. I think a lot of my friends kind of went even more overboard with that. And, with respect to girls in the class, it was all the big hair and big bangs that continued to punctuate the 80s as it rode on to its inevitable conclusion toward the show's end in 1989. Now, as I stated, Miami Vice ran for 5 seasons from 84 to 89, but not before Detectives Crockett and Tubbs went out in a blaze of glory. While the quality of the individual episodes rose and fell during its run, people can't argue that Miami Vice's influence as a whole can't be denied, and music on TV was never the same after that TV show. I'm Michael Douglas. If you like what you see here on the show, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe. And as the late Barry White always used to say, I kind of wish he would have appeared in an episode of Miami Vice. Let the music play, and I'll see you again on the next episode.